We had to make a big splash the first episode. So with that said, we brought on the one and only Saber Broker of the Year, Mr. Jeff Garza. And how did that come about? Just tell people the magnitude of this award that you got.
Truth be told, it was kind of brought up a little tongue-in-cheek.
What was the lead up for you from the beginning? Where were you before? How did you become a broker? And then what does your brokerage look like right now?
Yeah, so
what were your thoughts as far as when you're going through this? If it doesn't work out, I'll come back to the big name, the box.
Never.
Okay.
For me, it was very much.
What's up, mi gente? ¿Cómo estamos? We are back. Puro Pinche Real Estate Podcast. Consider this our comeback video or run. We did this for a while, and we took a little hiatus, but we're back. We even, during this whole time, we thought about rebranding the whole podcast, going to just Puro Real Estate. We got a lot of feedback, and it's funny, Jeff, I didn't even tell you this story, but we were at Cigar International with your boy David Kurz, and I was telling him the story of how we wanted to rebrand, and he was pissed. He was like, no, dude, like, why the fuck are you changing this shit? Like, you need to keep it the same.
Right.
Like, you need to be who you are. So he goes and he makes a big old scene. He calls the waitress. He calls the bar staff. He calls some random people. He's yelling at them like, what would you rather listen to, a Puro Real Estate or Puro Pinche Real Estate? Everybody said Puro Pinche Real Estate. Unanimous. So
Love it.
Here we are, guys. We're back. Puro Pinche Real Estate. We did not rebrand after all, and we're coming back bigger and stronger. We had to make a big splash the first episode. So with that said, we brought on the one and only Saber Broker of the Year, Mr. Jeff Garza, man. I mean, I think that's just phenomenal. He's one of the first, if not only Latino. I mean, how far do we go back?
Did you check some of the research I think we did was like, I think second or third Latino in the last 13 years.
Wow.
In the city of San Antonio. So that,
And how did that come about? Just tell people the magnitude of this award that you got, because obviously you should brag about it. I would too.
Yeah.
I mean, I would make shirts and shit about it.
Sure,
I don't know if you thought about that yet. Yeah. But how did this come about? Did Sabor reach out, or is it something that you get nominated by your agent?
Yeah, you get nominated. It's nothing that I've ever really looked at in the past. Yeah. But this last cycle, it was kind of brought up in the office. And truth be told, it was kind of brought up a little tongue-in-cheek, let's throw your name in there and kind of see what happens. Yeah. Not expecting a whole lot, but a lot of the agents took to it. Yeah. And according to some of the stories that I've heard after the fact, there was a ton of different write-ups and different reasons why people said that, hey, we think that you need to look at this brokerage and look at this broker, look at the leader. And then it turns out I actually was able to talk to somebody on the committee that was a part of that selection process after the fact. And he had told me that I think they had received 50 to 60 different unique nominations. Wow. And that they actually had multiple meetings where they started to vet them out and then start to whittle them down. Yeah. And somehow I made the chopping block, and then somehow they voted on things and stuff. And I've never looked into it before, but I guess
that's pretty cool. Yeah. And I mean, we always talk about this. We're not in this industry for the awards, but to have something like this and just to be nominated, I feel like it's a big deal. So I'm glad that you got it, man.
Appreciate it.
You're kicking ass.
Appreciate
what can you tell can you tell the people a little bit about you as far as how you obviously just didn't start and become fucking Broker of the Year? What was the lead up for you from the beginning? Where were you before? How did you become a broker? And then what does your brokerage look like right now?
Yeah, so I'll just kind of give you the bullet points, but short story long, as we like to say. So I've been in the industry 10 and a half years now, so a decade, right? And for real estate standards, that makes me pretty much an older name, an older presence in the industry. Most people, as we know, don't even last maybe 2 years, if that, right? So to be around a whole decade and to be able to put food on our table, for my own family and for the families of other people that we work with and collaborate with, that's really something special. But basically, so in my 10-year window, if you will, the first 5 years, solo production first year, team leader for the bulk of the next 4.5 years. Okay. Got up to a 10-man team. We were probably closing somewhere close to about 100 units a year during that time. So,
and this is during what time frame? Just to
this
give
would
people
have been
a picture of the market.
14, 15, 16, 17, kind of leading up into those years. And so, if anyone's from San Antonio, which I'm sure a lot of people are from San Antonio that are going to listen to this or see this, back then the average price point of a home was around 160, 165. Yeah. And so like all the agents today that are closing a $425,000 deal for their first closing. That's not how it used to be, you know? And so, and I mean, there's obviously the price points were a lot less even before then, but I remember back when I first started, average price point was about 165. If you had a 225, 250 listing, like you were selling on the north side of San Antonio, and if you had something like in the 400 range, like 450, 500, that could have been a custom at that time,
So you're actually kind of like high end on my end. So I was doing foreclosures and REOs back then. I was doing like $60,000, $70,000 deals, and actually like the median sales price for us that was a big paycheck.
There you go.
So I know exactly where you're coming from. So team lead, kicking ass, and then all of a sudden, what flipped the switch?
So not to go down a sad direction, but basically I had a life event, and the life event for me was the passing of my dad. And so how that's relevant to my story and to having Redbird Realty is I was a top producing team leader, a top guy at a very large company here in town. Learned quite a bit of great things over there. Met a lot of great people I still consider to be near and dear to me. But basically went through a life event, and I guess you could say, like, I feel like I wanted to do something different. Not that what I was doing wasn't meaningful, but something more specific to me for my calling. And so when my dad passed away, that was kind of the event that made me think a little different. Like, maybe I want to go create something that I can put my fingerprint on more than just my team at that time, right? And so went out on a limb and faithed it, and prayed a whole lot, man, and try to figure it all out.
Now let's be honest. So, like, did you ever and this is also for like the people watching that are thinking about getting their broker license and kind of seeing like, if I make this jump, is there like always like, fuck, I didn't think it was gonna be this hard. What were your thoughts as far as when you're going through this? Was there ever like, if it doesn't work out, I'll come back to the big name, the box?
Never.
Okay.
For me, it was very much burn the boats. And for me, it was, if I can't be a part of a company that's gonna be a winner over time, because that's really the only thing that really excites me is to not win, but I don't like to lose at what I do, right? Like, that's the competitive spirit of all of us entrepreneurs, right? And so for me, it was a matter of like, this is not gonna fail, and if it did, I wasn't going to go back. Like, I would have just moved into something different. And so luckily for me, it hasn't failed. But, started the company a little over 5.5 years ago, early 2019, and started with, one staff member, 0 agents. Today, it's roughly around 175 agents that I sponsor across the state.
And now, what does your staff look like now at the 175? Because
believe it or not, we're actually lean and mean right now. Really? So we probably have like a 6-man staff.
That's good.
To be able to support the 175 or so. But again, all full timers, all in the office. From contract compliance, contract review, operations, to agent concierge, and to our media team. So, and I'm very hands-on. So I probably, this may not come across well as people hear it, but I probably do the job of about 3 different people, And so I'm taking calls all day, all night long. I'm working with my agents on the weekends.
What's out of those 2, 3, jobs that you're doing, what is the one that you feel like this is needed? Like, I can't let this one go. Is it the support, the broker support?
The training. The training. Yeah, I feel like where...
So that says a lot about your company then.
I want to make sure that to this day, that while I still can, I can put my signature on things. And I'm not talking about my pen on the paper. I'm talking about like my style, my flair, through our agents, and hopefully they can grab a couple of those, couple of those pieces from me and then implement them in their style.
Sure.
But for me, the hands-on training and the, I guess you could call that support, But for me, if I was to drill down, I would say
and this is training. In person? Are you doing?
Yeah, typically I'll do four trainings a week in person, and then we do a couple of Zooms. And so, like, when I interview agents today, they say like, what kind of training do you provide, and how do I know that you're going to be there, et cetera, et cetera? And I'm like, well, just look at our social media, look at our calendar, look at the proof, in the pudding that's out there for you to be able to tell. But the other thing is I always tell people, like, I do more trainings, I provide more trainings, our company gives more training than you'll ever attend.
Yeah.
So when you're ready to come to all the trainings, then come and talk to me. And it's really refreshing, because it's nice to be able to say, hey, this broker is going to give everything. Mm-hmm. So if you want to become what you want to become, just match that energy, right? Yeah. And so, so that's what we do. But today, again, 5.5 years. We have an office in Central Texas as well. So we have our headquarters here in San Antonio. We have another office in Central Texas out in Harker Heights. And for the people that don't know that area, it's right next to Fort Cavazos in Killeen, Temple, Belton area. So
Heavy military.
That's a growing area. So we have about 40 agents that call that office home. And then, right now, part of our growth plan at some point over the next 6, 12, 18 months will be a secondary Northwest office in San Antonio, Hill Country in New Braunfels. That's actually where I live right now. And then a lot of smart people that I know are making a play down south in the Rio Grande Valley.
So a lot of growth, definitely. Yeah. So am I hearing a back-to-back Save Board Broker of the Year?
Oh man, I don't even know. Is that even possible? I don't know. I don't even know.
I'm gonna look into it, and if it is, we'll make sure that
that's
your
right.
throws your name in the hat.
Yeah.
So kind of just to move on, I know one thing that you mentioned that really stood out was the training. So with all this stuff going on, and everybody knows, for the majority of the people that are going to be watching this podcast are going to be in the industry or thinking about getting in the industry. They see all these shows. They're like, heck yeah, real estate is so fun. I see everybody on social media. But then there's been this big curveball with the whole NAR settlement.
Right.
What has been your take on this? And we won't spend too much time on this because it can fucking last forever here. But what is your main point? If you're talking to somebody like, hey, this is the way you explain it to someone that doesn't know, because you got new agents that don't know shit about it.
Right.
Then you got experienced agents that are all pissed off. And then you have the middle ones that are kind of like freaking out. Like, how do you explain it in general to everybody sitting in a room, because you don't know who your audience is at this point?
I would simply say that it just needs to be simplified in its simple format. The NAR settlement, the agreement, the changes, or the biggest change really is that we can no longer advertise that we're offering a cooperative compensation or commission on the MLS. Okay. So the settlement, the agreement did not say sellers are prohibited from offering a cooperative commission. It didn't say that it's not recommended that they don't offer a cooperative commission. It just simply says that we can no longer advertise it in the MLS, and that we as agent, from agent to agent, we need to pick up the phone. We need to contact the other party representing the buyer or seller, whatever the case may be, and we need to ask simple questions. A, is your seller offering a commission? If they are, what did they stipulate, and what did they authorize you to tell us? And then we just kind of get that in an ironclad format with some new documents that we have here at the state level, and then we just run with that. So that way there's no question, ifs, ands, or buts about what was being offered. And the last part to that I would say is that as far as training at our company and how we support our agents is simply this: yes, a seller can choose to not offer it. I don't know that that's in their best interest to be able to continue to remain competitive in the industry. A lot of people have opinions about this and a lot of myths. And
you think that people are overdoing it? What is your take on it as far as attention to it?
I do think that people are overdoing it, and I think that some agents, because I've actually seen this over the last couple months or whatnot, I see agents completely not knowing exactly what the ruling is, and they don't know how to apply the rule. And I hate to say it, but you can quickly tell when an agent is undertrained or uneducated in this particular scenario, because they're acting like, it's like, I have the information, but if you submit an offer, maybe we'll let you know, and maybe we'll consider it. Like, that's not the new document. The new listing agreement simply says seller is or is not. So there should not be any guessing games. We shouldn't have to be, trying to force it out of you or squeeze it out of you. So I think this is going to make us, truth be told, better communicators and better professionals over the next 3 to 6 months. And I think in half a year, no one will even remember this was a thing.
I think that's exactly where I was telling one of our newer agents that we're training about how the information about broker services, everybody fucking freaked out when it was like, oh, now you got to list everyone on there. Like, when before it was just a full one-page disclosure, initial. I had clients that wouldn't even initial it. They would just be like, no. But now they have like all the numbers at the bottom, and everybody freaked out about that change. But I do think that people are overreacting. I was talking to he's our intern going to his classes, about to get licensed, and I was explaining to him because he was sat in one of the trainings when we were telling the other agents, and he was like what? It doesn't make sense. He was like, because they don't know the old way. And I think that's hurting a lot of the new agents that are coming in, because they're getting more confused. It's like you're training them on the old way and the new way. That's fucking stupid. It's like, it makes things so hard. And I think as a new agent, and we'll kind of jump into new agents as far as what you recommend. But so for new agents, hey, just run.
Just know what you're doing. Know what the documents authorize us to say and to do, and make sure you have the conversation with the seller. Make sure that the seller is fully aware of all their options. You know, and just for clarity, you know, you and I would always agree, and we might put this on our headstone one day, like all commissions are negotiable, right?
For sure.
But once your seller tells you as the listing agent, yes, I'm offering it, or no, I'm not, then you need to tell that to the buyer's agent. Period. End of story. There needs to be no more gray area moving forward.
I mean, you hit it spot on. I mean, we're kind of running. It sounds like we're running kind of trainings, very similar. And my thing is like the newer agents. So I kind of want to focus on the newer agents because I know a lot of new agents on social media. They see other people out there, and they kind of get confused on what's going on with the whole market shift right now. But us that have seen different markets, it's just like, dude, calm down. Our average agent is in the mid to late 20s. So I have a bunch of young agents. I'm pretty sure you do too. To kind of focus on them, what is something that you're doing to strengthen them, because they are the future. And it actually, we were at the NAREP conference, and they were saying that just under 50% of first-time home buyers are in the U.S. are Latinos.
Right.
My first thing is like, fuck, if you're a young Hispanic Latino realtor getting licensed, you should fucking dominate this market.
Right,
you know, because that's your people. They're looking on social media. They're looking at the same places you're looking at. They look like you. They're your age. So that's the entry level agent. Like, what are you telling them? Like, how are you giving them the tools to kind of like make it in this industry? Because it is hard. I think you mentioned earlier that most agents don't make it past 2 years. So for everyone in the, not only young at age, but young in the industry, how do you uplift? ¿Cómo le das ánimo? Like, how do you tell these people like, hey, you got this shit, bro?
I think for me, right, and I don't know that this is unique to myself or, you know, at my company at Redbird, but I know that what I'm about to tell you is not necessarily spoken about very often at most offices across this city or any city. You know, like everybody, you know, has seen all the movies, and everybody talks about always be closing and coffee is for closers. But I come from a different perspective, which is always be helping. Always help, right? And so how I support new agents is I strip away the selling sunset right away. What I strip away is showing 100 acres in the south part of San Antonio in Red Bottoms. Like, I'm not saying that's something you shouldn't do, but if you're asking me, I think it's dumb as hell. Like, that doesn't make sense to me, right? And so I think, you know, selling sunset has its place, you know, maybe in Malibu or whatever, but San Antonio proper is not that, right? And so how I help those young agents is to be able to empower them, to give them the tool, which is the knowledge that they need to know for themselves, which is I'm a people helper. And my license gives me permission to help people through real estate when they're going through death, disease, divorce, job loss, job transfer, change in family dynamic, and obviously investors, right? But other than investors, those other 6 that I mentioned, they're all going through some shit. They're all going through life's, you know, ebbs and flows. Their life is throwing them curveballs. And so, you know, I tell my young agents, even my seasoned agents, like, never forget, you would not want to have a medical procedure done by someone who doesn't have good bedside manner and who doesn't show empathy and care and concern, right? So I think my answer to that is a new agent coming on to Redbird, we're going to teach them how to do contracts, how to negotiate.
That's a good
but
one.
I always tell them all the time, real estate is the easy part. Mastering communication and value for others and to others is where the money and the magic is made, right? And so I tell them all the time, if you want to sell, that's great, but you have to learn how to help. And so, you know, another thing I always tell young agents is that if you got into real estate for money, that's cool. But if you got into real estate to help people, that's really cool. But this is like the one industry that I know of in you know, my 45 years of knowing is that if you can master helping people, you can write your own check.
And it's funny, I just recently heard a quote, and the quote goes, si no vives para servir, no sirves para vivir.
There you go.
And I'm like, fuck, that really hit.
Yeah, for
if
sure.
you think about it, just that's itself like explains it is someone's like ambition, I think, comes from different places. But when it comes from that, I'm like, dude, that'll take you.
You know, I think a lot of the time
I want to get it tattooed now.
I think we as real estate professionals, we don't give ourselves enough pat on the back and enough real credit. Like, we say it once in a while, but do we really give ourselves real credit for helping that family who's
a big deal.
the 65-year-old husband, just met with the oncologist last month, got really bad news, wants to liquidate their real estate portfolio, wants to buy a $150,000 RV, and I don't mean to be morbid, but wants to see his last days in this world in the mountains in Montana. Yeah. Does that make sense? And so that's real estate. Yeah. That's real estate. How do you go in there? How do you not flinch, right? How do you not flinch when you go in there and you hear this, right? Because if you go in there again with the selling sunset approach and an attitude with red bottoms and all this other stuff, man, you're not speaking the same language of life that these people are talking, right? And so, my background is in social work many, many years before this, but so I kind of bring that approach into what we do, which is, hey, remember you're here to help. Remember your license can be super vital to people that are going through life transitions. And then other than that, just lead by action, because I think there's too many talkers, too many hot shots, too many young guns, and I mean, I don't know. I think you and I probably have our own critics and think that we're young hot shots, but at the end of the day, our records speak for themselves, right? And so you know when you're mastering helping people, when as they say in sports, right, the scoreboard does the talking, right? And so I always tell young people, don't worry about having to necessarily toot your own horn, all the winning with other people and helping other people win. People will see it, for sure.
So you were talking about earlier in your career that you were a social worker, but what is, just to kind of pivot a little bit towards to get to know more. So the people, I really want them to know why you're talking the way you're talking, why you're saying what you're saying. So what does young Jeff Garza look like? Were you growing up, were you business savvy? Because I think it's something that lacks in the Latino community, where I was telling my brother the last time we were here, is our tios never talked about business. Everything was very hush hush.
Right.
Real estate wasn't even a thing. I couldn't tell you 3 real estate companies that I saw growing up, because we would never. My dad didn't pay attention. My mom, nobody. That wasn't our thing. You know. But I think now, just seeing how much a home purchase could propel somebody for generational wealth. What was the young Jeff Garza? Because right now, everything you're saying, I mean, you're knowledgeable, you're training agents, you're teaching other people. But where did it all start? Did you? What's your upbringing?
If you would have told me when I was 10 or 15 or 5 or even 25, I would have never told you I'd be in real estate. Wow. That was never in my trajectory. That was never in the path. I grew up in a single parent household. My dad raised me as a single parent, from the age of 2 years old. Wow. Got full custody of us way back when. And so I just was raised by a loving Latino, loving Hispanic man, and a hardworking man, right? And so as he was raising myself and my sister, it actually took him 13 years of night school at Southwest Texas in San Marcos to be able to get his degree. But he was already working for one of the departments, I think Health and Human Services or whatnot. And so he was a social worker, right? And so I kind of just followed in his footsteps because I saw a noble man doing a noble day's work, getting a noble day's pay kind of thing. And so I thought that would probably be my end-all, be-all. And so my degree was actually in criminal justice at UTSA. Yeah. And never thought I'd be into sales, never thought I'd be into commission. But when I was young, I was never around, truth be told, I was never around people who were having the conversation about wealth building, about building assets, about building a portfolio, about... I don't want to say bettering their next generation, because my aunts and my uncles were all loving. Yeah. They were all successful in their own way, right? But they had a mother, my grandmother, who had a 3rd grade education and was a house cleaner and sewer here in San Antonio, right? So for them to have college educations, for them to have graduated high school and college, that was a whole new level for them, right? And so to kind of go back to your question, what was I exposed to? I was just exposed to Mexicanos and Hispanics who were proud to be loyal at their job. Yep. Mexicanos and Hispanics who were proud to be good parents, which is obviously what we would all strive to be. And that was kind of what the blueprint was. And so in terms of the entrepreneurial spirit, I saw my dad actually have side hustles. This was when side hustles were cool, before side hustles were cool, okay? And so my dad back, in the early 80s when I was a little boy, my dad was a mobile DJ on the weekends. Okay. My dad ran a piñata business on the weekends. He would go to Laredo across the border, fill up his long bed 77 Chevy pickup, and he would sell piñatas on Highway 90 in Military by Taco Cabana by Lackland Air Force Base. Yeah. And I'd be posted up with him at 6 a.m., on 7 a.m., 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning until we ran out. And so we would sell piñatas, right? And so the piñatas, the mobile DJ, and then he also got into flower bouquets and balloons. And so like on Valentine's Day and on Mother's Day, he would pack me into his Pontiac Grand Am, which is a small ass car now today. I think to myself like how freaking small that car was. And we would have to like duck in the back seat, me and my sister, because he had a bouquet or two, an arrangement in the car. And so we had balloons all around us, right? And so I tell you that story, and I haven't told that story in years, but I was around that, okay? And so as I moved forward throughout my life and was a social worker for nearly 17 years, actually, before I got into real estate, a lot of people have said, like, where did you get that from, right? Like, where did you, like, kind of like the question you're posing, right? And so the answer for me was that I was given the blueprint of what elbow grease and working with your hands could look like. And I was given the blueprint of no excuses. Yeah. My dad always told me, you're not a victim. And my dad always told me, it's a choice if you want to make smart plays and be a winner, or if you want to be a loser. It's your choice, right? And so he led by example, but moving into like today's Jeff Garza, right? You know, as a 45-year-old man who's got, you know, I've been blessed and worked very hard to get to where I'm at today. I know the difference between my dad and myself. And it's one simple difference. The one difference was he didn't have the means to realize his biggest dreams. Okay. And so today, you know, I mean, I'm not saying that, you know.
Is that what drives, is that kind of what?
It does, because like I think to myself, like I have a reputation in this city for some of the haters who might be watching this, because I'm sure they're going to be watching as well. Haters. I have a reputation for having like audacious dreams and big, grand ideas about being able to do more and to be able to be involved in a lot, right? That's not everybody's style. That's my style, though. Right. I want to be able to grow. I want to be able to have different ways that we're winning and that I'm impacting people's lives. And so I know that it's my job now today that when we do have the means and when the opportunity does present itself and when the connections are made, it's to be able to run with a dream and realize it. Because my dad had all the $1 million dreams, but he just didn't have the money to fund them. Yeah. And so that's one of the biggest lessons I learned as a child, was that you need money to reinvest and to rebrand and to build. And so when since I've been on this side of the tracks, I've never stopped reinvesting in a brand. I've never stopped watering and seeding and giving sun to the brand, right? Because I think that's where a lot of us maybe go wrong, which is like, okay, we've made it. Yeah. No, we didn't make it. We're starting again. Yeah, you know? For sure. But a lot of people think when they start, that was making it. And so for me, I guess you could say I don't ever want to let him down or his legacy. And I tell my children today that their job is to not ruin our good last name, not to ruin all the hard work that their grandfather, my aunts and uncles, my grandmother all did over the last 40, 50, 60, 70 years, and that their job is to do better than I'm doing, whatever that looks like, right? And I don't know if it's a monetary marker or if it's the size of your house marker, which I would say it's probably not. Yeah. But I think, are you helping more people doing what you do and you're passionate about doing? You know, so that's I guess that's my biggest driver.
I'm good. You mentioned you were talking earlier about your dad doing side hustles, and how does that kind of in today's market when in this real estate industry we're all independent contractors, so we're technically business owners, but when it tightens up for certain people, they tend to go other ways and open a side hustle. That way they can maintain their license and their dues and everything that costs to be associated as a realtor. So what's your opinion as far as that goes? Like, do you encourage it, or is it something where like, hey, no, you got to be, full in it all the way, or else you're not? Yeah. And what is your take also on part-time realtors? Yeah. Like, so is it, because I feel like if someone's part-time and they're out and about somewhere, like they're not gonna say like, oh, I'm a part-time realtor. They're gonna straight up say, I'm a realtor. Right. And then the questions are gonna come like, well, and then obviously at some point the person will find out they're a part-time realtor based off their work production. But initially, like with you, like what is your thoughts? And I'm not saying your brokerage, you run your brokerage different, obviously, but what is your thought on the whole side hustle things right now that things are tightening in and you need some sort of income? So.
I believe it or not, I don't know that this is the most popular opinion, but I don't have a problem with part-timers, and I don't have a problem with agents who do have a side hustle or two or three. I think I probably draw the line with real estate professionals who treat real estate like a side hustle. Does that make sense? So, I'll give you a couple of examples because, again, like you said, every brokerage is different. Yeah. Every, leader or broker owner or whatnot has their own their blueprint or their policies, if you will, right? And so I'll tell you two quick stories. I remember years ago, I interviewed this lovely lady. She'll know who she is if she hears this. She's still with us at Redbird, been several years. I remember she interviewed with me a long time ago, and she's like, you know what, Jeff, like, I love your model. I love everything about it. I think this could be a great place for me to hang my license if you'd be willing to sponsor me. She goes, but I just don't know that I'm the right fit for you. Okay. And I've never had anyone really deselect themselves at an interview, right?
In person.
In person.
Yeah.
And so she's sitting across the desk, and I'm like, well, why would you say that? And she's like, well, truth be told, I really only I'm going to retire from the phone company in 2 or 3 years. That's my plan. You know, I've been there 25, 30 years or whatever the case is. I've been a lifer. Wow. But I just kind of got my real estate license to help people, but to be able to have a little bit of casino and grandkid money.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, okay, well, what's the problem? She's like, I think maybe it's just like, I see myself doing 2 or 3 homes a year. I'm like, stop. Like, the young kids say to pause, right? Like, just stop. I want you to do those 2 or 3 with us. Like, let's do this. And so she felt good. I felt good about it. Like, I knew what her goals were, right? And ever since that year, for however many 4 or 5 years that she's been with us, I if she hasn't brought in over 6 figures every year and never bought a lead, never had a website, and has been her go-to realtor with her Bible study group in her church and other people in the faith community, I mean, she's closing 12 to 14 deals a year.
Good for her.
Even on the tougher years. And I mean, I'm the one that signs her 1099 at the end of the year, and she's making more than grandkid money, right?
That's awesome.
And so, so that's a great story that I tell people all the time. Like, when people talk about top producers, especially at bigger companies, a lot of the times you're going to find that they're like, hey, that's the wall of fame right there. And if you do these things, one day you can be up there, right? Yeah. Which that's cool, I guess, for some people who want that accolade. I've never wanted my face on anything, right? Yeah. But some people are motivated by that, which is okay, right? But at the end of the day, I tell people all the time at my company that you're a top producer if you met your annual goal. Because we never meet agents and say, what was your goal this year? Yeah. We always believe that their goal was 200K, 300K, 28 closings, 48 closings, to grow a team and have 120 closings. Like, that is not everyone's goal, right? And so I think, when you go back to the side hustle part of that, like, I don't have a problem with people that have a side hustle, because I do believe that, if you've been in the industry or you know anything about the real estate industry, the last 2.5 years have been brutal. Yeah. When interest rates were 8% plus, who was wanting to sell their home to go into a market to where they were going to pay maybe double what their current interest rate was today at that moment, right? And then you also had buyers who were like, that payment at 8% plus tax plus property insurance, et cetera, it's not even doable for me, sure. Right? And so there was a little bit of a stalemate over the last 2.5 years. So again, I don't have a problem with it. I think business owners and entrepreneurs have to be entrepreneurs. And I think I would personally be a hypocrite if I told people not to venture into other avenues of growth, right? But I always like to coach agents and train agents. If you need to go into another side hustle, always keep the main thing, yes. And branch out into arenas that will bring back fish to the real estate pier.
And
right?
That's something that we always like emphasize on the younger realtors. Like, if you're only helping people buy and sell real estate with your real estate license, and you're losing out. There's so many different ways that you could bring value by having that real estate license.
Totally.
It is a lot. You could go into the investing, the flips, there's we do tax protesting. There's just so many different options that you have as being that professional and having that
homes,
knowledge.
Apartment locating, all kinds of
property
things.
management.
Property management.
I mean, there's so many different things that's out there. And I think that for many years, it's always been brought on as just buying and selling.
For sure.
So when it comes to side hustles, and we're kind of on the same page. Like, master, one, and then branch out and run it.
For sure.
But at the end of the day, it's all coming back. So no matter what market you're in, because when people weren't buying, they were renting.
Right.
So are you out there in the rental homes? Are you working apartments?
Exactly.
And I think that's a great point. But I do want to touch on something that you mentioned about the top producers. So this is a big deal right now going on. The word top producer has been out there, and there's obviously companies, there's, that give the awards Platinum Top 50, the San Antonio Business Journal. Right. Obviously, NAREP has their top 100. Like, in your eyes, and you kind of answered it right now saying about your goal, but I mean, realistically, when someone calls themselves a top producer, like what are you expecting of this girl or guy? Like, is it something like knowledge? Fast talking, looks,
right.
I mean, what is what is something that you would want everybody to be like, okay, that's top producer. This is what a top producer does.
I would say again that their sales records, their closed volume speaks a little bit about whether or not they're a top producer. Yeah. But I think that term is thrown around our industry very loosely, and I think that a lot of people rest their head on the fact that maybe they will never be fact checked.
Yes.
And so I'm just like, man, you need to be real careful, right? So like, I mean, you would know,
I know. There's ways that we can look at everybody's numbers.
I can pull everyone's numbers. When someone calls me and they're like, hey, I'm at ABC Real Estate, and I'm a top producer, and I've been thinking about. I've had this call once or twice. I've been thinking about bringing my mega team over to your brokerage, but I want to know what you're going to do for me. And I'm like, whoa. Like let's meet before we start asking about what I'm gonna do. Like I don't even know you, right? Yeah. But I'm happy to know you. I'm happy to have this conversation, right? So where other brokers maybe or franchise owners or broker owners, might trip over themselves to have that conversation with that person, I'm just like, let's level set, come and sit in, let's shake hands, let's look each other in the eye. Tell me what your values are. Tell me what your value proposition is. Tell me how you've grown yourself. Tell me who you serve. Tell me how you've built your team. Tell me how you lead your team. And a lot of people are like, no, like, look at my sales. I'm like, but that's part for me is not necessarily the most relevant thing. The most relevant thing is, do you add to our culture? Can you mesh with our culture? Or are you going to be an outlier in my culture and you're not going to fit and you're going to be gone in 3 months, right? Yeah. Because you're coming in saying, hey, I'm this big time whatever. For me, like, I'd rather have 100 of the agents that I told you that wanted to do 3 or 4 and end up doing 12 or 13 rather than having to deal with someone who thinks that like the world owes them something, right? And so it's cool to be a top producer. It's great to have sales volume. But, in that people, I think maybe where you're kind of going with this question is I think people lose themselves
for sure
in trying to put on a facade for social media and trying to live in the award and accolade zone, right? And I mean, you have more accolades and awards than most people realize. I have more than most people realize because we don't lead with that, right? And so it's just like, calmate, like we get it. You're hot and heavy on real estate, And I also tell people too, if your numbers that made you a top producer were in 20 and 21.
That's different.
I don't even know if you were really a top producer or if you were just lucky. Yeah. Because you and I both know that when interest rates were 2.5 interest rate, interest rates were 2.5% in 21 or in late 20 during COVID. I don't even really know. And I this is the dose of reality I have with my agents. I'm like, hey, if you killed it in 20 and 21, 22 and 23, told us really if you killed it, right? And so if you really had systems, if you really had processes, if you really had a strategy, if you really had a business plan, or if it was such a hot market that many people were winning, right? And so
but it kind of goes into like influence. So a lot of people that were winning had a lot of influence. Yes. So top producers, are you a top influencer? Like if you have this many followers, does that kind of translate to and you know exactly where the fuck I'm going.
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
What is your take as far as like, yes, we talked about the different markets. Yes, we talked about, but I think we're kind of we're dancing around and what is top producers? So you're saying it's not fucking numbers, like stop, or it is numbers, or it kind of is numbers.
It's both. A little bit of numbers and it's a little bit of action. Okay.
I like that.
It's action. Like top producers, in my opinion, in my book, today. Now, 3, 4, 5 years ago, I might have had a little bit of a different perspective because I think maybe my perspective was still being molded. But today, now that you're asking me, what does that look like and feel like to you, Jeff? To me, numbers are one thing for sure, but top producers act a certain way, in my opinion, in my book. Yeah. I've been friends and been taught by many before me, and still am around a lot of them today and still learning a lot from people like that today. And the top producers don't need to say it. Yeah. The top producers don't need to talk about it. They just work the plan, And so in terms of influencers, I think an influencer is something very different. Not everybody who has influence uses it properly. Maybe they don't want to exploit it or leverage it, which is maybe by choice or maybe a fault. Maybe they don't even know that. But I think you can be an influencer in real estate and not know how to negotiate yourself out of a plastic bag, right? But I think you can also be an influencer who is or was a top producer who does know how to be a ninja negotiator, a great communicator, and be able to develop win-win contracts, right?
Yeah.
And so again, I don't know. I mean, I just know when the deals start to unravel, broker hotline gets called, and I'm talking to agents daily, left and right, about this agent is being abrasive. This agent yelled at me. This agent is being nasty. This agent, I'm just like, man, it's unnecessary, man. It's unnecessary. Like, if agents today on the buy side and the sell side would truly just decide that we're still on the same team, even though we represent two parties, but we can still be professional together. Like, you don't hear your primary doctor cussing out the x-ray tech when he sent you to go get your knee scoped or x-rayed, right? Like, they're on the same team, right? And so both of our patients are the seller and the buyer. So we need to, I think, try to do better, and maybe influence the outside less and influence the business we have our hands on more.
Yes.
You know, I think some people are worried so much about the outside looking in versus what does it look like in my business, you know? So.
No, that's a great point. And I think everything goes with it. It all kind of goes back to like the whole your purpose in real estate. So yeah, the numbers mean good, but if you're crappy and you don't treat people well, then you're probably not gonna last that long,
right?
You know. But at the end of the day, like I think if you're trying to build a brokerage or a team, I think what you're saying is you're looking more at the person than the numbers. And if the numbers are something, we could easily get them checked.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, if I was going to use like a simple picture or some sort of like analogy, if you will, like, you know, Home Depot or HEB. Truth be told, they don't necessarily care that you go in and spend $10,000 on lumber in Home Depot, because they have figured out how to monetize the washer and the nut and the bolt. And so if you're just a washer, nut, and bolt shopper, they're happy too, right? And so what I'm trying to say is that Home Depot has a offering for all, right? HEB, there's going to be some people who hit their wine section heavy, right? There's going to be people who hit their meat counter in a different way than other people shop for meat, right? I don't know. But at the end of the day, they have a service and an offering for everybody. And so I believe, like, at the broker level and at the company level, I think brokerages that put their agents in a box are the ones that make them very recruitable for me. If you want to know the truth, because you can do your own special magic here because there's room for you. And it's not necessarily Jeff's way or the highway. It's as long as we're ethical, as long as we're legal, as long as we communicate, and as long as we maintain professionalism, I got a seat at the table for anybody, right? So again, I feel like we have an offering, and I think that people maybe need to be more in tune with, you know, just let people show you who they are and then believe them versus believe what they say they are. Because I've never been in an interview with an agent where they told me they were a sucky agent. Does that make sense?
Totally.
No one has ever come to my table and said, hey, Jeff, I'm going to be your biggest headache in the next 6 months, so hang on. You know? And so everyone sells themselves in that environment. So, they ask me, like, what do you look for again? And I'm like, man, I'm just looking for a beating heart, and hopefully you're being honest. Hopefully you're being pure with your intentions. Hopefully you're ethics driven. Hopefully you have a moral compass, but time will tell.
Yeah, and I feel like in your thing, and you're building a company, you're bringing on agents, 175 agents. That's crazy. Like, I feel like you're dealing with a lot of different personalities.
Totally.
And I think it's hard, but just to kind of move on to the next section is, like, in your conversations, not only with them, but on social media, there's the pinche infamous shift talk. There's all this different shit. Like, people now have a voice. Right. So what is your perspective, or what is your thought? And this is, you could do it on the Jeff the broker, or you could do it Jeff the agent, or Jeff the person. What is your thoughts when realtors are out there talking shit about, not talking shit, but just like pumping up a certain political, you know, running guy, like, or girl, or what is your thoughts in general when it comes down to politics and real estate? Because and I'm mainly saying social media, because a lot of stupids go out there and they say stupid shit, and then they're like, well, I lost all these people. Like, well, because you're acting like a so-and-so. Like, you know, like, what is your thoughts as far as, what would be your advice? I guess we should go more towards that, towards the real estate professional, the top producer, whatever you want to call yourself, influencer. Like, is that something you mix, or like, nah, stay away from it, or fuck yeah, talk about it? Or,
I personally don't have a problem with it if you're willing to live with the consequences. And so I tell people all the time, if you're sound in your business and you're sound in your referral business and your clients absolutely love you and you're okay running an attraction business where you having an opinion, let's say politically, you know that you're going to alienate half of the consumer base. If you're okay with that and your business plan is drawn up for that, do you go after it, right? I always tell our agents, in trainings and when I'm supporting them and having conversations, I always tell them that no matter what side of the aisle that they're on, politically speaking, they should be able to understand both sides and be able to, I don't know if empathize is the word, but to be able to understand that another person could have a different political view, but you can still help them in their real estate need. And those two things can be true at one time. A lot of people today would like to say, well, if you like Trump, like you're not my agent, or if you like, the other side, you're not my agent. Like, is it not possible that we can all just get along?
Not only that, but housing still runs. And I tell everybody, like, no matter who's in presidency, obviously I'm going a little bit back here, but like when Obama was in, shit, we had the first time credit home buyers and we fucking killed it. Yeah. $8,000 everybody, at that point, no matter who they voted for, they're like, Obama. But then come another one. Right. Trump did great for foreclosures and REOs and building. So that was awesome again. Right. Now we got a different administration. They're pushing affordable housing. So that's the thing that people don't understand. It's like housing and our industry runs no matter who's in presidency. And it's up to you to adjust. For sure. So I just think that a lot of people do shoot themselves in the foot when they kind of take it a little too far. I mean, obviously, I'm not saying, shut up and don't say nothing. You voice your opinion. Right. But I think you made a good point in saying that knowing their business. Yeah. Knowing who their
know who your audience and your crowd is, right? And if you saying, hey, this is what I stand for, you feel like it's going to amplify your crowd and maybe help you, then go for it, Now, I'm definitely not a censor guy, so like, hey, do you. But just know that if you go to an extreme, then I don't know that you can necessarily peel back from that very quickly, right? And as you and I both know, once it's online, it's there forever, right? And so, but I don't tell my agents to stay away from it. No. I tell my agents that if they're going to have an opinion, they need to have an educated opinion. And I also tell my agents to not be emotional in politics and to be data-driven and to also understand that each party per se does have a direct impact on their business as an entrepreneur. If kicking real estate to the side, owning a business under one administration and owning a business under another could have a drastic change on tax brackets, different credits for your business or not.
But then again, no matter who you are, you shouldn't bank on one person.
100%.
Yeah. So it's
no,
like,
totally.
Yeah,
totally.
And totally I'm glad we talked about that. And I
totally
think
agree.
A lot of the stuff is a lot of younger people that are seeing, because back in the day, like, yes, growing up, like I remember politics being, but they weren't as heavy. Yeah. Like now it's gacho. Like they're fucking talking shit to each other. Yeah, it's
crazy.
But back then, I feel like no social media, no big media. So the Clintons and like the old build, like they wasn't crazy.
Bottom line is, if my guy or girl doesn't win, I'm still going to win in business.
That's a good point.
And I know you're going to win in business. And I know that we're going to adjust to win in that climate, whatever that climate looks like, right? And so, a lot of people would rather just say doomsday, XYZ. Like, no, like we're all going to be okay. It just may be different. Yeah.
No, that's great. I think you hit it spot on. And I'm glad we could kind of like not spend so much time on this. Because I really want to talk about the next topic. The next topic being is why do you think Latinos don't have a big platform in the real estate industry? Why do you think that we're not like, I mean, obviously we have NAREP. We love NAREP. They've done a big job, because before the top 100, there was nothing. Like there was no awards. There was nothing. It was always just very cut dry, you know. So now being highlighted is something that I feel like they're doing a great job. But at the end of the day, like we still don't have a big platform. Like, just being honest, like the big box brokerages, there's really very few big Latino that owners or impact. Everyone's either independent or still trying to fucking work their way up. Like, why have we not got in there? Like, what is your thing? I mean, I have a couple. I mean, I could start with like our education growing up is not there, but that's slowly changing. But what do you think is the biggest impact? Just kind of looking the past 10 years or whatever you've been in the business. What is your thing? And is something that you're shooting for, striving for, pushing for someone else, or is what's
I can't say that it was ever like on my to-do list, but as I get more seasoned in this industry, and I feel like I definitely lead many people like in my organizations and stuff. I think that there's an awareness about that, right? But I have to tell you, like, my honest truth is that I feel that the Hispanic and Latino culture as a whole, now, disclaimer to anybody watching this, like, I'm gonna use a broad brush. I think the majority of us are about 30 to 40 years behind.
Okay.
Because when our forefathers, right, and I'm not even talking about like, first generation or second generation Americans.
Yeah.
I'm talking about like your parents' age, my parents' age. They would have been born in the 40s, early 50s,
yeah.
okay? And they were born into a very, very racially divided city, racially divided community, where there was a very clear line of haves and have-nots. And I say that because I do believe as a society and as an American culture, locally in San Antonio, South Texas, Central Texas, Texas as a whole, we've made leaps and bounds,
Yes.
man. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
today I live in New Braunfels today, man.
Yeah.
You've been to my house.
Yeah.
Like, I live in New Braunfels, man. Like 20
to Oklahoma,
yeah,
but
close to Oklahoma in the hills, yeah.
Yeah.
But 20 years ago, dude, man, I remember, and I won't say the company's name, but there was a company over there that you couldn't walk in to go grab lunch without having a problem 20 years ago.
Oh, damn.
And I remember that. And so just to know that we've progressed over 20 years, those are all steps in the right direction. But ultimately, where is our presence and why are we lacking it in the real estate space and even in the entrepreneurial? And I know you even mentioned, like, where's the Latino Tony Robbins?
So that's actually a great point, Jeff, about like why don't Latinos have like a Tony Robbins, a Tom Ferry, like all this stuff. And I think that for the most part is I want to say it's the knowledge. We don't have someone that has really dived down. We recently saw Tony Robbins in San Diego at the NARIP conference, and just the knowledge he had. He actually talked about everything being cyclical. So like everything that when our parents were growing up, they were facing this. They were facing a big time racial issue. Everyone, and then in the 80s, 90s, you had this big influx of like music, and it was just more of a party. And then 90s, 2000, we had tech, and everything just started moving along. But where you grow up makes a big difference. And I feel like when you say we're 30 to 40 years behind, is like all the people right now are coming.
For sure.
And that's a good thing. But I mean, I still think that 30, 40 years is a fucking long time to wait. Why don't we have someone that we could look? And it's not only in real estate. It could be just in business in general. Like I think it's needed. I think it's something that it's going to be very beneficial to not only the people coming up, but the people behind them. So what would speed it up? What would get us there faster? What is your thoughts? Is it even possible, or is it just like fuck it, just wait?
No, it is possible, man.
Yeah.
It is possible. I have to be able to sleep at night and believe that it is possible. And you just asked a great question. What would speed it up, right? What would speed it up is our own culture supporting our own culture. Yeah. I think a lot of the times, like, sad to say, like, in this city, like, I got people in this town that look just like me that can't stand me. Yeah. And I've never even had a conversation with them. Yeah. Like, I don't really know why you can't stand me. Yeah. And so that will always keep that person down, right? And so it's get out of your way, start to collaborate with people who have bigger visions, who have bigger conversations, who have bigger models at bigger tables, and eventually the cream will rise even from those tables, right? Yeah. And so I think right now there's still a lot of positioning, and there's still a lot of jockeying, right? Yeah. At the San Antonio level, at the Austin level, at the Houston level, like who's the dominant, who's the alpha, who's the man, who's the woman, right? Like, why can't there be several? Yeah. Like, why can't there be several great minds that are great leaders? And why can't we start to promote each other, right? Yeah. And so, I mean, obviously, like when you and I started collaborating, it was more like I have to thank your lovely wife, Vanessa. Yeah. Like, she was just like, hey, like, I'd love for Rob and you to sit down because y'all are very similar in many ways. And like, maybe y'all can collaborate, right? Yeah. And so I think the spirit of collaboration is vital in speeding it up. Yeah. I think the spirit of information sharing is vital in speeding it up. And I think I'll kind of maybe summarize by saying that our lack of know-how is the reason we're behind. But if we'll have conversations about what do I need to know, how do I progress, how do I amplify my message, how do I promote myself better, if we were to talk to people who are doing it in a different space, maybe those people that are 20, 30, 40 years ahead of us, they figured out a long time ago that they needed to have their CPA, that they needed to have their bookkeeper, that they needed to have their attorney, that they needed to have a PR firm, that they needed to have a marketing company. And they realized that they were going to invest in themselves to build a team to promote this person, right? And we, I think, still are very much stuck in con ganas si se puede.
Yeah.
Well, everyone has ganas.
Yeah.
But I need a marketing team.
Not everybody has ganas.
Well, not everybody has ganas, yeah,
ganas.
but I need my attorney. I need my accountant. I need my CPA. I need professionals who went to school many, many years to eventually maybe put their hand on a spirit and a talent like you, or a spirit and a talent like me to help us amplify the story and the message. Because I think we go to bed thinking it's all on us. It's not all on us. And if we can start to actually play a team game, several of us can rise and be players in the industry.
Just to kind of elaborate, not to cut you off, but the story that Jeff was referring to was, so my wife Vanessa was taking her real estate renewal classes at Champions in a random class, and this is something that is still eye-opening because you look at the big picture and you're like, okay, so like Vanessa's not a pushover.
No.
Manages over 200 some properties, like runs a tight ship, runs a brokerage.
She's a beast.
She's a beast. And then goes up to you, which also, 175 agents, done 10 years.
Right.
And the fact that at this level, you could fucking like drop your guard down, like, dude, like what the fuck? Like, why can't, imagine if we would have done it a lot sooner.
Yeah. And I also think to myself, here's the scary part, Rob. I think about that story very often. And I think to myself, what if Vanessa would have never turned around and said, hey, you're Jeff Garza, I'm Vanessa Saenz, and I said, I know exactly who you are. I'm a fan of you and your husband's. I followed y'all. I've watched you. Your husband is a pioneer as a independent broker owner. I would love to talk to him. And she's like, I think y'all need to collaborate and talk. I think y'all need to have a beer or go have some wings or whatever the case is, and like just see if y'all can connect, right? But what if she didn't?
Yeah. Or what if you turn around and you're like, fuck that.
Exactly.
Who are you?
Exactly.
We've had that so many times, and it fucking gets old when we're like at events. It's like, oh, I don't know you. Like, bitch, you fucking know me.
Exactly.
Like, shut the fuck up.
Exactly.
Like, but that's the thing that breaks up a lot of
the barriers and the walls.
Yes.
Like, I collaborate today. You and I very well know, like, we collaborate with a lot of different people to further our agenda, right? And that's a truth we have to speak about. Like, I want to be in business with people that can help me get to another level, while I can also help them get to another level, right? I think when we were raised as children, we were told a lot, mijo, don't let anyone take advantage of you. Yeah. I think the spirit of an entrepreneur is to find dual leverage and let people take advantage of you all day long. As long as I can have an advantage on my side as well.
Equally.
Does that make sense? Yeah, equal advantage, right? And so, I'm smarter by knowing you. I'm smarter by knowing your wife. And y'all have opened up some doors for me that would have never opened as soon as they have, or maybe even ever. I feel like y'all knowing me has opened up a door or two that maybe would have never happened. But ultimately, if we were literally working and living in a world of scarcity, like everyone wants to talk about abundance and scarcity, like, no, I can tell when you're scared. Yeah. I can tell when you're scared, right? Because you refuse to shake my hand. Yeah. I can tell when you're scared because you refuse to look me in the eye. I can tell when you're scared because all I hear in the industry is that you're talking about me. Yeah. Like, man, like let's work together. Oh, yeah. Like, let's figure this out, because our competition is not each other. Yeah. The competition are other people who are winning at a much higher level. And I don't even say this competition, but like if that's the gold standard, I don't want to be playing a bronze winning game or a silver game. I want to learn how to win the gold, right? And so other people who are playing the gold standard, whoever that might be, whatever companies that might be, I want to be on that level at some point. And there's nothing wrong with me wanting to be there, And that's how you move up on the platform. And once you get up there, you create a platform, you keep on going. That's it, man.
It all starts at the bottom, man. I'm glad you kind of broke it down. And I wasn't even trying to go there, but I'm glad that we did, because I think it lays out exactly how it is. So, man, Jeff, it's been a great conversation.
Sure,
I think we talked longer than we should. Our guy Sam is probably looking at us like, fuck. No, I'm glad he brought the backup batteries. And we definitely got to do this again.
For sure.
We have plans to bring on, some great people, guys. Just if you don't know, if you haven't seen, we've had Ronnie Trevino. Do you know Ronnie Trevino?
I know Ronnie Trevino. I know Ronnie.
Gilly Mendoza?
I know Gilly Mendoza.
Cesar Amezcua. We've had our buddies from Austin, Carlos Benavides and Adrian Salas. We've had Gino Montalvo. Dude, Gino Montalvo's a fucking beast.
Yeah,
He's a beast. If you guys don't follow him, follow him. Follow everybody, guys, because I think that's the only way we're going to get to know each other and how we're going to be able to understand these conversations that we're having, because they are a little different. They're a little bit, this is not your office standing by the fucking water jug type conversations. And we hope to bring you more. So make sure and tune in. Make sure and follow us. And Thank you, Jeff.
Appreciate you, man. And if I can, just give me 20 seconds. I just want to thank you, like, because I want this to like memorialize my appreciation for you, right? So, like, a lot of people don't realize, but Rob has been in the industry 20 plus years, and he started when he was a young man. And so I remember when I first started in the industry 10 plus years ago, I remember getting on social media, getting on Facebook, looking at all the awards, looking at all the top dogs. And I remember seeing Rob signs in Excellence Realty out of Helotes, and I kept on seeing it and kept on seeing it and kept on seeing it. I'm like, man, that guy's onto something. Like, that guy's a doer. That guy's a winner, right? And so a lot of people don't know, and I don't think that this city, truthfully, gives you enough credit for being what I consider to be a pioneer in the independent broker owner space and doing it your way. You know, I know you were once at a big name a long time ago. A lot of us started at a big name a long time ago, but to be able to venture off and start your own thing and basically burn the boats, like, that takes balls.
No, yeah,
and
that's humbling
so,
coming from
you know,
you, man.
I think I just respect the hell out of you, man, for what you've done and what you've done for the city and the blueprint that you've laid for other people that could be the future Robs or Jeffs or Vanessas or whoever else in the future, that it can be done. And so I don't know if I ever eject from the big company that I'm at if I can't see someone that looks like me, talks like me, you know, that kind of thing, doing it, and it made it safe for me to do it. So I just want to tell you, like, forever here on after, like, understand, like, it meant a lot for me to see what you were doing.
I appreciate that, man. Big words.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it, man.
Sir.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Puro Pinche Real Estate. And it's not Puro Real Estate. We're keeping it Puro Pinche Real Estate, and we're going to keep growing this, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.